Congratulations! You just finished first phase of buds, and now you only have to survive the next 5 days to come and you become a Navy. They tell you it starts on Sunday night. They don't tell you exactly what time. So you spend Sunday doing what everyone does. You eat, you hydrate, you try to sleep knowing you won't. You lie on your rack and stare at the ceiling and listen to the other guys in your buds class doing the same thing. Nobody's talking much. The ones who are talking too loud. That's nerves. You recognize it because you're doing a quieter version of the same thing. The waiting is its own kind of torture, and they know that. They designed this program that way. You've been in buds for 6 weeks already. First phase. The weeks before Hell Week exist specifically to grind you down before the main event. Long runs in the soft sand, surf torture, log PT. The obstacle course, 4 hours of sleep on a good night. You've already watched 30% of your original class walk up to the instructor and hand over their helmet. That's all it takes to quit. You walk up, you set your helmet down, you ring the bell 3 times. Simple, clean. The bell is always there. That's intentional too. But you haven't looked at the bell directly in 3 days. Great superstition, your own personal rule.
Then Sunday night, the sky lights up. It starts with gunfire. Blank rounds, but your body doesn't know that in the first half second. You're out of your rack before you're awake. The instructors are everywhere, screaming, air horns going. Someone's flooding the barracks with a fire hose, and the floor is already an inch of cold water. You have 60 seconds to be in the surf in your boots and utilities. You make it in 45. The Pacific Ocean in Coronado in November is 53 degrees. This is a fact you knew before you got here. Knowing it and standing in it at 10 a.m. with soaking boots and an instructor telling you to link arms and go deeper are 2 different experiences. The waves don't care about your preparation. The first one hits you in the face and takes the breath right out of your chest, and you make a sound you didn't plan to make. Your swim buddy is to your left. You can feel his arm locked in yours. That's the only warm thing in a 53-degree ocean, and you focus on it. This is just hour 1. You have approximately 132 hours to go. The first night is chaos by design. You run everywhere, not jog, run. From the surf to the beach, from the beach to the grinder, from the grinder back to the surf. In between, you do flutter kicks in the sand until your hip flexors are having a private conversation with your brain about mutiny. You do push-ups in the wet sand with waves washing over you. You do sit-ups while an instructor stands next to your head and asks you personal questions in a calm voice while you're trying not to drown. Sleep deprivation starts working on you faster than you expect. By hour 20, the edges of things start to go soft. Not dramatically, just slightly. Colors are a little duller, sounds take a half beat longer to process. You know what's happening because they briefed you on it. Your brain is going to do things. You're going to see things that aren't there. You're going to have moments where the logic of the situation stops making sense. The instructors know this. They will use it. You focus on the next evolution. Not the entire Hell Week, not the next 5 days. You focus on only the next evolution. Chow is in 40 minutes. Get to chow. That's the whole plan. The boats arrive on Monday morning. Inflatable boat small, IBS. 7 men per boat. You will carry this boat on your head for the next 5 days more than you will do almost anything else. It weighs 180 pounds dry. It is never dry. Wet, it's closer to 200. Distributed across 7 men, that's manageable math, except that you've been awake for 20 hours and your shoulders are already raw from the straps. And manageable math stops being manageable when your body is running on nothing. Boat crew competition is constant. Every evolution is a race. Your boat crew against the other boat crews. The winning crew gets to rest, while the losing crews do more. Rest means sitting on the sand watching other people suffer. After 30 hours without sleep, watching other people suffer while you sit down is the greatest luxury you have ever experienced in your life. Your boat crew wins the first race. You sit down, you close your eyes for 4 minutes. An instructor walks over and tells you to get up. 4 minutes. That's the rest.
Monday afternoon is the log. The logs are telephone poles, actual telephone poles, roughly 300 pounds, 1 per boat crew. You carry them, you press them overhead, you do squats with them, you run with them, balanced on your shoulders. 7 men trying to move in sync when none of you has slept, and 2 guys on your crew are already on their second set of borrowed socks because their feet have been wet for a full day, and the skin is starting to do things feet aren't supposed to do. Log PT doesn't just look like a punishment. It is a punishment, technically, but it's also something else. You can't do it alone. The log will win against one person every time. It requires 7 people moving together, communicating, absorbing each other's weaknesses in real time. The guy in the middle of the log is carrying more than the guy on the end. You rotate. Nobody says much. You just rotate because everyone can feel when the rotation needs to happen. The guy to your right is named Torres. He's from El Paso. He played college football, and his shoulders are wider than most door frames. When the log gets to him, he takes more than his share without announcing it. You notice. You file it. This is how you start to understand who people are. The log is on your shoulders for 4 hours. When they finally tell you to set it down, you stand there for a second, and your body doesn't know what to do with the absence of weight. You feel light in a way that makes no sense given everything else.
Monday night is the first time you hear the bell ring. 2 rings means 2 guys. You don't see it happen. You're in the surf, but you hear it above the waves and the instructors and the noise of everything. And something in your chest responds to it that you didn't expect. Not relief, not superiority, more like a door closing. 2 more doors just closed, and the room got smaller, and you're still in it. And that means something. But you don't have the cognitive bandwidth to figure out what it means right now, because there's a wave coming, and you need to breathe before it gets here. By Tuesday morning, your class has lost 11 more men. Tuesday is the ocean. 2-mile ocean swims are not new to you. You've been doing them since week 1. This Tuesday swim is different because you've been awake for roughly 40 hours, and the cold water that felt like a shock on Sunday night now just feels like where you live. You and your swim buddy enter the water together. You will exit together, or neither of you will exit. That's the rule. That's also just the reality of cold water and deteriorating cognition in a current that doesn't care about your timeline. The swim takes 47 minutes. Your hands are so cold when you come out that you can't feel your fingers well enough to untie your fins. Your swim buddy unties them for you. You untie his. Neither of you says anything. You just do the thing that needs doing and move to the next evolution. That's the whole operating principle at this point. See the thing, do the thing, move.
Tuesday afternoon, they put you in the mud. The mud pit at Bud's sits behind the beach between the sand berms. It is cold, thick, smells like the bottom of a bay, and is approximately chest deep in the middle. You spend 4 hours in it. This is called the mud pit evolution, and that name undersells it, the way calling a hurricane a weather event undersells it. You are in mud up to your chest doing flutter kicks. Mud gets in places that mud has no business being. It's cold in a way that's different from the ocean cold. Ocean cold is sharp. Mud cold is heavy. It presses on you from all sides and makes your muscles work twice as hard to move half as much. The instructors walk the edge and offer you a deal. If enough of you quit right now, they'll let the rest of you sit by a warm fire. They'll bring hot chocolate. They'll give you dry clothes. You hear 3 bells while you're in the mud. The guys who are still there link arms. Someone in the middle starts a cadence, low and tuneless. Not motivated, not Hollywood, just rhythm, just something to push against. You pick it up. The whole pit picks it up. The instructors watch this happen and don't say anything. You find out later that the fire and hot chocolate were real. They actually had it set up. You didn't know that in the mud. You just decided the answer was no.
Tuesday night is when the hallucinations start in earnest. Not everyone gets them the same way. Some guys see things in the shadows. One guy in your boat crew becomes briefly convinced there is a large dog following your boat during a carry evolution. There is no dog. He knows there's no dog. He can't stop seeing the dog. He keeps running. Your own hallucinations are more subtle, sounds mostly, voices and white noise, the wind sounding like a conversation just below the level where you can make out words. You catch yourself turning to answer someone who isn't there, twice. The second time, Torres sees you do it and gives you a look. Not judgment, just recognition, because he's going through his own version. You develop a system. When something seems wrong, check with your swim buddy. If he sees it too, it's real. If he doesn't, it's not. Simple triage. It works well enough. The instructors know this is happening. They've seen it in every class. They're not trying to break you with the hallucinations. They're watching to see what you do when your own brain becomes unreliable. Do you panic? Do you shut down? Do you make dangerous decisions? Or do you build a system? Check with your buddy and keep moving. You keep moving.
Wednesday is the middle. This is important for reasons that take a while to understand. Monday, you are running on adrenaline and the energy of the start.
Thursday and Friday, you can start to see the end. Wednesday has neither. Wednesday is just the deep middle of the worst week of your life with no edge to orient toward. Wednesday is also when the real quitting happens. Not the guys who are always going to quit. Those ones went on Monday. The guys who quit Wednesday are the ones who almost made it, who had enough to get through the beginning, but couldn't manufacture enough to carry them through the middle when there was nothing to look at on either side. You lose 7 men on Wednesday. The log is back on Wednesday. It's always back. It's back like bad news. You've been awake for 60 hours and your shoulders have a specific pain that's moved past sharp into something structural, and the log goes back on your shoulders and you do the thing. Torres takes more weight again. You shift left to compensate. Nobody talks. The log moves. Wednesday night, they run you up the beach, 4 miles north in the soft sand. Soft sand running is a specific category of suffering. Hardpack is efficient. Soft sand is like running in slow motion while someone attaches small weights to your feet every quarter mile. Your calves are carrying 5 days of accumulated damage. Your feet have been wet long enough that the skin quality is a concern. Your body has started to flag. You run 4 miles north, then you run 4 miles back. Somewhere around mile 6 on the return, the guy in your boat crew named Makevich, everyone calls him Mac, goes quiet in a way that's different from the regular quiet. You've been running next to him long enough to know his quiet. This is a different quiet. You look over. His face has gone to a particular neutral that you recognize because you felt it on your own face. He's thinking about the bell. You don't say anything profound. You don't give a speech. You just say his name, once, flat, like a check-in. He looks over. You nod. He nods back. His face comes back. He finishes the run. He finishes Hell Week. You never talk about that moment afterward. You don't need to. Thursday arrives and something shifts. Not in the evolutions. The evolutions are the same. The boats are the same. The surf is the same 53 degrees. But something in the class has changed. The guys who are going to leave have left. What's in front of you now is a self-selected group of people who have collectively decided something. Not consciously, not in a meeting, just through action, through staying, through 4 days of sustained answer to the same question. The team is different now. You can feel it in the boat carries. 7 men moving like one thing. Nobody announcing rotations, nobody over-communicating. You've developed a shared physical language that didn't exist on Sunday, and you can feel it working in real time. And it is, despite everything, despite the pain and the mud and the sleep deprivation and the hallucinations and the cold, genuinely remarkable. This is the thing they're actually building. Not toughness. You came in with toughness. They're building something that requires other people, something that can't exist alone, an instinct for the team that goes below conscious thought. The log goes up on Thursday, and it goes up cleaner than it did on Monday.
Thursday night, they let you sleep. 20 minutes, controlled, on the beach. You lie down and you are unconscious before your eyes fully close, and you are awake again before the 20 minutes is up, because your body has recalibrated what sleep means, and 20 minutes registers as something substantial now. You feel it, genuinely. 20 minutes of sleep on Thursday night of Hell Week, and your body treats it like a gift. That recalibration stays with you after. For months after Hell Week, you sleep efficiently in a way that's almost mechanical. Short windows, deep and total. Your girlfriend at the time says it's unsettling how fast you go under. You explain it's just training. She says it seems like more than that. She's probably right. Friday exists to let you see the end. They let you see it deliberately. The instructor's tone changes fractionally, not soft, not kind, but calibrated differently. The finish line has appeared in the distance, and you can all feel it, and they know you can feel it, and they adjust accordingly. They're not trying to break you on Friday. The breaking window has closed. Now it's something else. Now it's completion. You run, you carry the boat, you go in the surf, you do log PT one last time. Your body is performing a function that has moved mostly outside of your conscious control. You are not powering through the pain at this point. There's a more accurate description. You have renegotiated your relationship with pain to the point where it's just information. It's there. You receive it. You continue. Friday afternoon, they line you up on the beach. The Pacific is right there. Same ocean that's been hitting you in the face since Sunday night. Same cold, same indifference. The sun is going down over it, and the light is doing things that light does at that hour over that water. And you are standing there in the most physically destroyed state you've been in your life. And the light is still doing its thing, and you notice it. An instructor walks down the line. He stops in front of your class. He says 2 words: secured, secured. Hell week is over. You sit down on the beach. Just sit. Nobody tells you to. Nobody tells you not to. You just collectively run out of standing and sit down on the wet sand. And the waves keep coming, and the light keeps going. And nobody says anything for a long moment. Torres is to your left. Mac is 3 men down. Your swim buddy has his arms on his knees and his head down, and his shoulders are moving in a way that might be crying or might be laughing, or might be both, and you're not sure it matters. You've been awake for approximately 130 hours. You've run somewhere between 200 and 300 miles, depending on who's counting. You've been cold for 5.5 days. You've been wet for 5.5 days. You've carried boats and logs and each other, and you've done it in sand and surf and mud and dark and rain and the specific grinding nothing of Wednesday. You lost 40% of your class. The ones who are sitting on this beach are sitting here because of a decision they remade somewhere between every 5 and 15 minutes for 5.5 days. Not once, hundreds of times.
The decision to stay isn't one decision, it's a continuous one. You keep making it until you don't have to make it anymore. An instructor brings food, actual food. You eat it in the sand, and it is the best meal of your life. And it is a turkey sandwich. They send you to medical. Your feet are a documented disaster. 3 guys have mild hypothermia markers. Everyone has something. They check you, treat what needs treating, tell you to sleep. You sleep for 12 hours. You wake up and you're still in the Navy. You're still in buds. There are more phases ahead. Dive phase, land warfare, the rest of the training pipeline. You haven't graduated anything yet. Hell Week isn't the finish line. It's proof you can stand at the actual starting line. You understand this. You put your boots back on.